We have Jerry Gidel to talk about extended dryness in Brazil and the markets right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, the mercantile exchange closed higher today for soybeans, corn, and several other commodities.
Well, there's also we're looking at the world statistics. We're also looking at the U.S. situation here. Been back and forth. The stock market got really fired up yesterday, basically because the idea was that it didn't increase in U.S. interest rates, and there was some talk they wouldn't increase them at all, and maybe even decrease them here starting in the spring. Some of the Fed Reserve governors tried to slow that down today in some commentary, but in general here, the previous concerns about inflation, and if you look right here to our markets, in the corn and soybeans and wheat, they're definitely not anywhere higher like they were last year. Even the beef market, which has had a very tight situation here for quite some time, has been defensive because we've moved some more animals into the feed yards over the last 6 or 8 weeks. So that's part of the defense, the optimism about prices and that type of thing that's kind of popped in here the last few days. Wow, we've got
What's the impact, in your opinion, about the U.S. export data?
the export data that we had from yesterday, I think was very solid, particularly this week on soybeans. Oh boy, we had nearly, excuse me, a number here that approached 550, 600,000 tons today. And we've had 2 or 3 other announcements this week pushing things over 1 million metric tons here for soybeans. Now, the wheat numbers that showed up in yesterday's weekly statistics with a 1.1 million metric tons of stuff to China was kind of, no, we knew about that. Early in the week, there was this attitude that, oh boy, well, the Chinese business is over, the wheat market's dead, and all this kind of stuff. But we've had, some substantial announcements here. We've had Egypt in for, approaching 500,000. We had, I think it was 900,000 metric tons from Algeria. And then even now, we have Saudi Arabia having a tender out here for most likely 500,000 metric tons. So I think the markets started realizing that the world has been sitting back and waiting here on these prices. And conditions in the Black Sea with weather as it has been recently, been pretty nasty over there, just to get even ships actually loaded and things of that nature. I think we're coming of somewhat of a post-harvest situation in Australia. So the wheat markets maybe got some footing here, which is a good one. Wheat has been a market that has been very sluggish for 6 or 8 months, and on a downward tilt. And if we can get that market to get fired up here and get moving, it's going to be a process and all that kind of stuff. But I think we've really kind of passed the negativism that's been going on in that market, and to some extent here in even the U.S. I think that there's been some reduced seedings down there. There was some rains in Oklahoma and Texas. I think it was yesterday, was pretty substantial, and it's moving across the southeast and into the northeast here really next week. But the impact on the wheat market here worldwide, I think there's a attitude that the prices are pretty competitive, and it's a time to get some coverage out in front of you. And I think that's a factor to be solidify that market, and that's going to help the whole psychology here of the CBOT prices.
Now, the matter that we have discussed in the last several weeks was the dryness in Brazil. And I think we are going to talk about that in the next few months, I guess.
Oh, it's this ongoing process. Yeah, Mato Grosso and Goiás in the northern areas just never have really got a consistent amount of rainfall and that type of thing in that northern areas. And I think that's and now, by all indications here, we're going to have some very hot weather move back in over late weekend and most of next week. That's the it's definitely not going to be a positive for the soybean crop out there that has got beat up along the way. And also, to some extent, I think it's also going to maybe even reduce some of the seedings in parts of the northern parts of Brazil here. There might be shifting over to a lot of talk about cotton on this thing. I don't know how much is there. I think there's a lot more corn seed available, but the problem is it's also a crop that really needs a lot of moisture. Cotton is a lot more tolerant of dry conditions. Even soybeans have, if you can get them established, are better off than corn is. Corn is one of these crops that really needs a lot of moisture. So that is a difficult choice for the Brazilians at this point, how to approach their current conditions. The southern Paraná and down towards Rio Grande and maybe parts of Rio Grande do Sul have continued to be on the I wouldn't say they're as bad as they were earlier in the season with heavy rains, but they're still getting plenty of moisture. And I don't think there's been a lot of chance to replant as much as they'd like to do there on some of their lands. So Brazil is going to be tough. Now, Argentina, I think part of the reason why we kind of set back midweek was that there were some decent rains in the eastern sections of their growing areas there in Argentina, because the Buenos Aires and the areas near the capital and that got some respectable rains. Cordoba and Santa Fe, though, the bigger producing areas, got some rains, but nothing. There wasn't any 2 or 3 inch opportunities out there to really set them up. So that could be something that continues to come back and have an impact here too. And that, but most of the focus on Argentina is the transfer of to the new government down there, and there's lots of what I thought we were going to do something else. No, we're not doing that. Oh, there's lots of controversy in Argentina about the transition to the new government. I think that a lot of people assumed there'd be dramatic changes, and unfortunately, you can't turn things around dramatically in a couple of days.
Yes, and one thing we can start looking at is that if there is a problem with the Brazilian soybean harvest, especially in the center or west,
Mm-hmm.
the central western part of the country, you can start talking about problems with the second corn crop.
Oh, now that's been one of my advocacies for a while, and good to be reminded us of it. And that the biggest problem becomes is that somehow or other there doesn't seem to be as quick a connection here in how quickly we're going to end up getting the soybean crop that's been delayed on plantings and other issues out there, how quickly we can get back in here and get the second crop corn actually planted. Because the interesting part of South America's soybean seeds down there, they are a determinate style, which means that they start at a certain date and you plant them, and then you have so many dates till it's time for them to harvest. And so if you put them in late, they're going to come out late, and that then puts more strain on getting the corn crop in, so you can actually get it harvested before the spring rains just pretty well shut down there. So it can fluctuate from middle of April to the middle of May. But right now, if there's a lot of beans, or excuse me, a lot of corn out there that could be impacted particularly if because they really want to see that the double crop corn being planted by the middle of February. They all plan up to the 1st of March, but it's dicey. And last year it kind of got by. This year there's not as much optimism considering the weather trends we've had so far.
Now, another thing that can impact the grain and the oilseed markets is the logistical issues. We have had problems with the Panama Canal. The Mississippi River has been low, and today's news is that many of the shipping companies are not arriving in the Red Sea.
Yeah, because of the issues that have popped up here from some of the it's not specifically Palestinians, but the gunboats of Yemen seem to have popped into that part of the world, and that's just adding more confusion as to how particularly for trading opportunities coming through. I wouldn't. Hopefully, the boats that have some Russian flags on aren't getting touched on, but guaranteed other countries and that kind of stuff. And that, interestingly enough, even the Russians don't ship everything under their own flag. So it's an interesting world. But you're exactly right about the U.S. And there's reports today here from about Panama, still not likely to get much improvement here in their water in the canal over there until possibly next spring. And at this point, we're down like a million, or excuse me, like 5 to 10 million metric tons from a year ago on shipments through there. And interestingly enough, I think that's part of the issue that's happened here. We've got some sales on the U.S. books, but we're not shipping as strong a thing as we've done in the past, primarily because Mississippi is the main artery for us to ship things out to the world. Things to Asia can be shipped up through the Pacific Northwest, and I think some of the wheat that China has recently purchased from Softtrade could easily go that way. We could see some of these beans that China has been buying going up that direction, but it's been definitely a stumbling point for the U.S. exports is that the Panama Canal is definitely, most of the time at this point, you're talking at least 20 to 25% of capacity to get it through. That takes a lot. It costs you a lot more to get there to use that situation. So that's the reason why I think people are starting to look at other alternatives, even to go through into Africa or Asia, places like that.
Now, what are you expecting for market activity for the Christmas week and New Year's week?
Well, these last 2 weeks of the year are always somewhat quiet affairs here. Most of the supporters here of our investment funds and things like that, they really kind of pull back their participation in the markets at this time of year. I think there's still going to be an impact to the dry weather and potential issues in South America there. In Argentina, it looks like from all indications here that the new government down there has moved down their currency values down to 800 pesos to the dollar from maybe 1,200, 1,300. But at the same time here is that they still doesn't look like they're going to make a big change in the exports for soybeans, and there is indications they're going to raise their corn exports from 12.5%. Excuse me, the taxes on exports from 12.5 to 15% from there. So that's part of the disappointment that's kind of impacted the post election here of the Mr. Mealy in Argentina from there. But to some extent here, the right at this point, at least, this market's probably going to get some impacts from the weather in Brazil. Looks like they've got really warm temperatures coming their directions and minimal moisture. The biggest thing right now is that we might swing back up towards the $13.75, $14 mark on prices in January. But at the same time, we probably won't see anything dynamic unless it continues on into January at this point. The corn market is really interesting. I kind of feel like that I'm still looking at potentially as a modest increase in sales up here close to $5 basis the March at this point. But at the same time, moving up 10 or 15%, that one could be very interesting if this weather situation and what we talked about earlier here about Brazil not maybe being able to plant as many second crop corn from there. And then the wheat market, same kind of scenario here. That $7 barrier up above us here is important, but right now at least looking at swinging factors here to utilize prices up towards those major resistance points. But overall, this market could still have some interesting impact as we go into January and our final crop production numbers that'll be out, I think, on January 11th or 12th, I think, again this year.
Yeah, there is a lot of excitement, I guess. Well, I will see you before the end of the year. I wish you a Merry Christmas and Merry Christmas to everyone.
Oh, definitely a good idea. I think it's well, we'll try to get an update here just before the January 1st to get it started. But right now, at least this market most likely is going to be a choppy two-sided affair. And if you're needing sales, use those topside opportunities to make some cash swings so you can pay for your Christmas gifts.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.